told you, there's a role where you can sit on company strategy meetings, travel internationally for business, and have direct access to C-suite executives. Hello. In my last video, I broke down what the chief of staff role actually is, the day-to-day, the salary, the exit options, and the risks. If you haven't watched that one, linking it here so you can check it out. Today, we're going to get a little tactical on this topic. This is a playbook that I wish someone else handed to me when I was doing my job search. I'm going to show you how to find these roles, how to nail the interviews and stand out, and how to succeed as a chief of staff in your first 90 days. And number one, of course, the job search. First step, easiest step, go on LinkedIn, but also follow a number of job boards. Make sure you set your chief of staff search alert on LinkedIn so you get the most regular updates. I would always recommend applying to the role within 24 hours of the posting. In addition, make sure you check out chief of staff specific job boards. For example, the Chief of Staff Network, which is a global community of 900 plus chief of staffs across 20 global cities. They have a pro membership tier that gives you exclusive access to vetted peer network, industry events, as well as many training courses available. They also post jobs regularly on LinkedIn, so make sure to follow them so you get the latest. In addition, there's also Chief of Staff Association, chiefjobs.com, as well as built-in. And the next step beyond just your regular alerts and job boards is to follow real people who can give you insider information. Just to name a few influencers that I think you should check out: Lenny Rachitsky, who is massively influential in the tech world, specifically for product managers. There's also people like Maggie Elson, Clara Ma, and many more who founded their own chief of staff networks and companies that will help you navigate breaking into this role. The next step, of course, networking. I think this topic deserves a whole episode on its own. In this job market, you must know someone to even get your foot in the door for an interview. If you're coming from an MBA program, your alumni network and current student network is your biggest advantage. So definitely reach out, ask for 20 minutes of their time to ask how they landed their role. For me personally, I actually came to know about the role through a classmate who is a year below me. So your network really stretches both ways. And for non-MBAs, you're not short of resources. Reach out to the chief of staff person in your company to understand what they do, people who have done the role in your network, and attend industry conferences. In all of your especially cold reach out, make sure you state your purpose very clearly, articulate in one sentence why you're the right fit for the role that you're targeting, and that will increase your chance massively in terms of response. Now let's talk about interviews. The chief of staff role interviews are very different from most others because you're not selling a specific skill or experience or background, but you're selling judgment, you're selling business acumen, and you're selling the ability to think like an executive. Here are the three things that you cannot miss when preparing for your chief of staff interview. The first step is do your research obsessively about the company. If you're applying to a public company, that sometimes makes your life a little bit easier. You can go through their 10K and 10Q filings. And this sounds crazy, but you need to read them and leverage all the AI tools to give you the summary. Just make sure you digest the information accurately and at the most thoughtful level possible. You must be able to speak to the company's financials at a high level, their competitive positioning, as well as strategic priorities. Put yourself in the brain of the executive that you will be supporting, whether it's the CEO or another C-suite executive. What's their key objective? What's top of mind? What keeps them awake at night? Do your research to give yourself the best approximate answers to those questions. For private companies, it's a little trickier, but there are resources out there for you to do the research, and that is going to Crunchbase or PitchBook for funding news and announcements. For startups, read Bloomberg, biased, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and the very, very niche financial business publications to get the latest interviews on the founder or the executive that you'll be working with. And yes, look them up on LinkedIn, look at what they post, look at what they like, to look at any interactions that you can find. It is a little borderline stalking, but it's going to help you in your interview. And here's the most important thing. Yes, you can do all the research that you want, like an investment banker, and know every single number on their financials, but that is not enough. It is very, very important that you build on this research and form an opinion. You should be able to articulate the company's competitive advantages, where they might be vulnerable, or the risks, and have a point of view of where they stand. Specifically, here's my guidance as to what numbers you should be looking at in all of these filings and what are the key metrics that you should use to measure the company's health. Company performance. Look at the free cash flow, EBITDA, as we like to say it, the profit margin, as well as compounded annual growth rate for the revenues, or CAGR. Sources of competitive advantage. Dig into the company's strategic resources and assets, so something that the company owns that others don't. For example, Saudi Aramco's oil reserve or TSMC's chip-making factories in Taiwan. Also look at the strategic capabilities of this company, something that they can do that others can't. Think Apple's supply chain or Claude's large context processing. Then assessing the relative bargaining power. Look at the value chain of the company. Who is their supplier and who is their customer? And finally, evaluate their resilience. Look at their cash flow, any government protections, look at their debt to earnings ratio, as well as credit rating score. And also, you might not need to bring this up during your interview. You're not given an assignment to walk in and impress the CEO, or if you do, different story, but you need to have all of this information in your back pocket so when there's the right time to bring it up, you show that you are prepared. And the second thing that I think you must tackle is to build a pitch. And this will seriously differentiate you from 90% of the candidates. Basically, based on your research in the previous part, you should come up with an idea that you're ready to pitch to the CEO or your executive about, which would potentially help them do their job better, hit their P&L target, or whatever priorities that's on their mind. For the idea, it can be in any of these three areas, which are basically the framework of what a management consultant would use in their caseworks. Revenue growth. Is there a new channel of sales that they haven't thought about? What about a new customer segment? Could they launch a new product? And then cost efficiency. Are there processes that they should have built but haven't? Are there areas of cost cutting? Are there any resources that need to be modernized and streamlined? Finally, the strategic risk. Is there anything that's happening in the market that they haven't really thought about or they should be thinking about? This is as basic as if you want to work in the entertainment industry right now and for a chief of staff role, you better be able to articulate some impact that you potentially see after the entire Warner Brothers, Netflix, and Paramount fiasco. You don't have to be 100% right in your pitch, but you have to be factual, you have to be thoughtful. Third important thing is to prepare 10 to 15 very thoughtful questions ahead of time. Your questions, as with any other interviews, are as important as your answers, especially for this role. It not only shows your executive how you think, what you prioritize, but also your humility. At the stage of the interview, you cannot be possibly 100% confident in what you're pitching to your executive because you don't have the point of view of an insider. So be absolutely transparent, curious, ask good questions, and let your executive humble you. Here we are. I love giving tactical things that you can take away from this video. Here are some interview questions to think about if you're interviewing with the CEO. Where do you see your company in the next 5 years? Where were the biggest areas where your previous chief of staff made your life easier? Were there any where they made it harder? How does your leadership team make decisions? How often do they meet during the year? Is it in person? Is it virtual? How often do you conduct company town halls? And like I mentioned in my previous video about interviewing a good boss, you can ask the same questions about where can I add the most value now? And for some other functional executives, or if you're interviewing for a smaller startup, you should be prepared to discuss very specific areas of the business with your executive. For example, I see that your company has had a very strong footprint in Europe and South America. Have there been any plans to expand further globally in other regions, or is the plan to invest in growth in existing markets? I see that the company acquired Startup X. Has the team been fully absorbed into the other functions in the company, or are they operating as an independent unit? The company had a record year in 2025. With all the consolidation happening in the industry, what is your top one priority to make sure that the company hits a winning streak again in 2026? If any of this resonated at this point, and especially if you're actively trying to break into the Chief of Staff role, be sure to check out these 2 courses that are offered by the Chief of Staff Network. The AI Fellowship Program, which is a program for Chief of Staffs who want to lead AI transformation within their organization and learn how to evaluate AI vendors, build internal AI roadmaps, and position themselves as the connective tissue between leadership team and technical teams. And then you have the Chief of Staff Network Launchpad course, which is the flagship certification program for people entering the Chief of Staff path or early in their tenure. It covers the core operating principles of Chief of Staff and gives participants a cohort experience with peers who are navigating the same challenge. And use my personal code, CoffeeWithMinnie, to get 10% off on both of these courses today. I'm linking the courses in my description below. Now you got the job and the real work starts. Here are the key things that you need to get done to succeed as a Chief of Staff in your first 90 days. And the first one goes without saying, prioritization is your new religion at work. As mentioned in my previous video, you will likely be pulled in all directions as a chief of staff on every single project and areas of the business that your executive touches on. For example, last week, I was simultaneously working on
one deal restructuring, one new deal and new pitches and new modeling with our team, and while writing a market analysis on the company's future growth opportunities. At the same time, I had to digest hundreds of emails on potential supply chain disruption in the Middle East, on upcoming financial forecasts and planning cycle.
That's why you've got to be ruthless about your prioritization and what deserves your attention. A recent framework that I learned and are actively practicing is to have a now, soon, and never to-do list. Cap your activities to 5 to 6 items in each of these categories, and anything else beyond that is just noise until something else moves out of the priority list. Another useful tip is to have what's known as the tuxedo agenda and the pajama agenda. As it sounds, the tuxedo agenda is the external facing priorities that your executive must address. The pajama agenda is all of the internal fires that need to be handled behind the scene. Your job is to manage both simultaneously. And to help you better prioritize, you need to build your own information system. This balances both managing all the relationships that you have in the company so you know where to get what and what time. And at the same time, you also need to be very ruthless about building your own AI-powered tools to summarize documents, do market research, do data analysis very quickly. This is where that key project management skill comes into play. In your first 30 days, listen more than you talk. Understand how things work, why they work the way they do, and form your opinions on how they should work. Day 30 to day 60, this is when you pick and choose a problem, try to lean in, weigh in on your value add, and solve something. And then in your 60 to 90 days, this is where you go deep in your relationship. Make sure you understand the dynamics between all of the departments that you work with, speak to all of the executives, understand their priorities and pain points and leadership style. And that will help you navigate your career as a chief of staff in the long run. And once again, the chief of staff path is competitive because of all of the rewards that potentially come with the role. At the same time, you need to understand the challenges, ambiguity, and the uncertainty that come with it as you pursue this career opportunity. If you've watched this video to this point, do drop me a comment below. Let me know, are you currently exploring a chief of staff opportunity? Are you already in the role? And if you find this helpful, please do subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!